G'day folks, welcome to an Cyclone Chasers video update here on our developing weather centre. This is an exciting little, or not little, massive project that we have undertaken to help our subscribers analyse and forecast future weather events. First things first, you go to the oldcyclonechasers.com.au website and then click on login. Once you've done that, your current weather centre as it stands right now hasn't been too many changes there since last time, and the one change that we have made, and I'll just go through it now with you, is this little thing at the bottom here. Now if we just zoom in a little bit there and have a look at what I'm talking about. So this is now a scale that we've actually scaled the intensity of the rainfall expected from the different colours on the radar. So let's say, for instance, and I'm going to use Townsville as an example a lot today, purely and simply because A, it's my hometown, B, it's the last thing that we were working on during the day today. Alright, so we've got a little bit of green on radar and a little bit of blue on radar. Well, we know that that's going to be really light rain, but how light is light? And we can see that green there, there's about 3 or 4 different shades of green, and the artists among you will be able to pick out each and every one of those shades. But there are about 4 shades of green through there, so we're looking at around about a 15 decibel or dBz intensity, and we're looking at about a 0.3 to 0.4 millimeters per hour rain rate. Now, if we take a look at some of these showers a little bit further to the north here, they get into the yellow, probably about the 3rd or 4th shade of yellow, so they're looking at about 5 millimeters an hour, up to 5 millimeters an hour in some of that shower activity there. So this is why the radar, the actual change that we've made here, the scale change is beneficial. So not only can we just tell the colours and what the dBz value is, we've now given you an opportunity to find out exactly how much that would be in terms of rainfall. And at the lower ends it goes up really slow, but in an exponential type increase as we get up the scales and we start looking at the heavier type rainfall echoes. You can see here we go from 50 to 100 millimeters, then 100 to 200, 200 to 400 millimeters. So we go up very quickly once we get into these higher end rainfall scales, or reflectivity scales, I should say. Underneath that, we also give you an example of what you would feel here. Drizzle at the blue and the green end of the scale. Sometimes most of the blue stuff you probably won't even feel. It may not even hit the ground. Once we get to the green stuff, we're looking at light rain. Once we get into the yellow and orange stuff, moderate rain. Once we get into the red stuff, heavy. And once we get into purples, we're looking at hail. And obviously, if you ever see grey, duck and get underground. Because if we're getting grey, all hell's breaking loose. Okay, so that's what we've done. The only change that we've made to the public version, or the subscriber version of the Weather Centre. Let's take a look at what we've been doing behind the scenes though. If I hit this Weather Centre development link, and what we can see here is the 256K radar and a 500 meter visible imagery. Now this stuff has already been on your Weather Centre, it's already there right now. There's nothing new in this, but what is new is we've added the road overlays now for the entire nation. If we just zoom out here to give you a look, and take away everything else there, radar, satellite, locations all gone, boundaries all gone, and just have a look here, the road overlays, we've now got them, all the major roads for all of Australia overlaid on this map. Another interesting overlay we've added, and you can always add or take these options away, is the radar range overlay, and this gives us an idea of how well the coverage is for your particular area. Now you can see some of these radars have pretty rubbish coverage because of topography. In the most part, mountains block radar beams. Surprising that, isn't it? So you can see ideally what we want to see is 360-degree radar coverage like we have here in the Northern Territory, but unfortunately that's not the case, and that's why we see so much radar overlap here along the coast, is because some of these radars have less than ideal coverage. But it gives you an idea when we start to zoom into a particular location. So let's go back to my little Townsville area here, my little beloved Brownsville town. And we give it a moment to update, and there it goes. So we can see here where the radar coverage is good and where the radar coverage is less than good. And obviously we want to see some locations now. We want to bring this back to the satellite, and let's take away the radar range now, and let's take a look at some of the other more interesting overlays. Alright, so what we've done now is we've created a 64-kilometre overlay for Townsville, and what we have done now is we've also introduced the visible imagery for Townsville at 64 kilometres along with the radar. So you've got here all the different little locations that we've added to the map, But I think the best thing about this is we've got this really high resolution satellite imagery is now being overlaid with radar imagery, and so you can see how the two link together. If you click on the boundaries overlay, we then have the actual coastline and the state boundaries drawn in there for you. If you take that off, those things aren't there. All right, one of I guess the biggest thing that we've been working on this past week has been the introduction of all of the different model parameters now that we're going to be seeing on the Weather Center. So we've got things that look at instability here, like lifted indices, and if we just overlay those, you can see now the lifted indices and how unstable the atmosphere is. So I'm not going to go through all of these, but I will show you some of the more interesting points with this. If we go through storm probabilities, showing you where storms are likely to form right now, and this is a nowcast. Soon what we will be adding is a slider here to look at forecasts. So right now we're looking at nowcasting. Now, in saying that, let's go back to my little hometown of Townsville and let's have a look at how things are looking on model guidances. Okay, so what we've just introduced in the last few days, in fact, is the ability to overlay models in a localized region. So let's say I want to have a look at the K index, which shows us the possibility of storms based on lower level instability. And if we take a look here, the K index very high in this area, and surprisingly or not surprisingly, this is the same area that we're getting the radar echoes and the stronger satellite signature. So this allows us now to zoom right in to a localized area. So this is the Townsville 256K radar and satellite. Let's take a look here. We can go right into Townsville and overlay the models at 64-kilometer resolution. So we can even start to look at different suburbs now and what is being predicted. And particularly so if we're looking at things like temperature, and you can see temperature just inland of the coast here getting up there compared to what coastal regions are, and closer to the ranges here you can see temperature a little bit less. I think the big thing people will start using it for is rainfall possibilities, and when we start to look at this really close range, people are going to want to know what rainfall is looking like. So if we look at days 1 to 2 rainfall potential, and you can see here that the most of the southern parts of Townsville are expecting to see the heaviest rainfall, being fairly light still, but the heaviest falls in the area, whereas if you go north of Townsville, looking at slightly less rainfall. And if we then then we want to zoom out, we can always do that. We can go straight back out to Townsville at 256K. So you can see tomorrow we're expecting to see some storms developing in this Greenvale to Georgetown area, possibly even further south towards Pentland. And so this is the sort of stuff we can do. And then if we want to zoom right out and see how does that compare with Queensland itself, and here is Queensland's latest picture for tomorrow, and you can see where the rain is expected to be across Queensland tomorrow. So these are the sorts of things we can do, and then obviously zoom out to Australia. We've added things like deep layer mean charts. So here what we can see is the wind shear across Australia, and we're looking at which direction that shear is coming from. So we can also have a basic idea there, just looking at that chart, which direction, if a tropical cyclone were to form, which direction it would go to. We would have satellite overlays which we could turn on and off. Another cool little formula chart that we've added is the average relative humidity across the depth of the atmosphere here. This is really important come cyclone time because we need to be seeing high amounts of moisture. So if we're looking at a cluster of storms here in the Indian Ocean and we're looking at no moisture near them, then we can pretty safely assume that a cyclone wouldn't form out of that. So we can see here just on this chart how important this chart is. We can see that this moisture is streaming down here from the north into this trough system, and that's something that we wouldn't be able to tell exactly where the moisture was coming from unless we had access to a chart like this. So this is really, really good stuff especially when we come to analysing and forecasting tropical cyclone development. Similarly, when we're looking at storm development, things like dewpoint charts are going to be extremely important, and their ability to zoom right into a storm potential location. I'm not saying that Townsville is ever a storm potential location, but let's say we want to have a look at where in Townsville we could be seeing a little bit of enhanced moisture, and we can see here just to the north of Townsville we've got this little wave, or this little bow of higher dew points. So if we were in a storm potential day, for instance, storms are more likely to fire up along that wave there, where we've got this more moist level of air coming through. So these are the sorts of things that we can start to utilize with this stuff that's going to be on our weather centre shortly. And I know we've been looking particularly in the Queensland and for today particularly Townsville, but we're doing exactly the same thing for the Northern Territory and exactly the same stuff for Western Australia. So it's going to be a really useful tool no matter where in these 3 states you are, and eventually it'll be a very useful tool for South Australia, New South Wales, Victoria and Tasmania as well when we get around to doing those particular states. But for the moment, our focus of course is the 3 states that are most likely to experience tropical cyclone and severe summer thunderstorms. While I've got you here, let's take a look at the next week. You can see on our chart here, we're looking at significant rainfall in the next 24 hours. We've already seen significant rainfall here across southern Queensland. Probably see a fair bit more there. 24 to 48 hours time. A little bit of an easing here, maybe a slightly more coastal centred activity tomorrow, and also up here through northern Queensland. You can see this moisture pushing into the Northern Territory too, creating light to moderate falls of rain there. As we look at days 2 to 3 from the forecast, you can see the Northern Territory really starting to ramp up with storm activity up around the top end. You can see this moisture just streaming all the way down here through Alice, through into Alice, and then a new trough system forms in this area here. So we're going to see an increase in rainfall across southern and western Queensland again, a decrease in rainfall across the northern inland parts of Queensland, and some showers along the coast parts of Queensland as well. Now on Sunday into Monday, we've got very heavy showers and storms across the Northern Territory, extending through into Queensland here, particularly through southern Queensland here. We could be seeing some very heavy rainfall there. It's Groundhog Day then on Monday and into Tuesday, where that trough system pushes off the coast, still lingers through here, so we could be seeing some showers and possibly some isolated thunderstorms across central and northern Queensland, but then we have another one developing through the Northern Territory. How good's this? This is amazing stuff. And then as we go into Tuesday into Wednesday here, we can see that system really intensifies. We see a lot of rain again across western Queensland, a lot of rain across the Northern Territory, and some showers and storms possibly spreading eastwards towards central and northern Queensland as well. And then as we go in towards this time next week, we've got once again extremely heavy rainfall here across southern Queensland, and isolated to scattered showers along the coast. Once again, the Northern Territory, a little bit of a drying out here through the central parts of the Territory, but other than that, it's pretty amazing. And this is the sort of stuff that our Weather Centre will be able to do very, very shortly. As I say, it's scheduled for release early October, and we can't wait. If you're not a subscriber yet, it's easy to subscribe to us. If you go to ozcyclonechasers.com.au, that's our website, click on subscribe to OCC, click that link. Tells you what you get there. It's $38.50 for 12 months, includes GST. If you click on buy now, then you can go through all of the process. It's not really that big a process. And support our Chase team and get one of the best, what I believe will be one of the best weather resources out there on the web. Subscribers, I know you're excited. I'm excited too. We're probably only a couple of weeks away from rolling out the first part of the Weather Centre. Stay tuned next week. I'll let you know what we've been working on over the next 7 days. Enjoy the rain if you're in the Northern Territory or in Queensland. I'm sure most of you will love this enhanced weather coming up. Until next week, have a great week.